So today's presenter is Dr. George Tsekouras. He's the director of the Centre for Change, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Management at the University of Brighton, and he's also the Innovation Chair of the British Academy of Management. His research focuses on SME entrepreneurship and innovation, and he's the founder of the ProfitNet programme, which some of you may have been involved with in the past, which has had more than 2,000 SME participants across the UK, Ireland and South Africa. I'm going to stop now. You will hear my voice at certain points as I'll be conveying questions over to George, but for now, George, it's over to you.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. As Sona said, this is an event that we are organizing as a university. I must say CENTRIM has probably 30 odd years of experience in research, and one of our passions is how to do research that benefit people outside the university, in the wider society, the economy, in other sectors of the society, and how we can actually improve their lives. Today, I would like to speak about a rather probably controversial issue, and this is how the difficult times we're going through, and there's no doubt that it's difficult times for some people, it's dramatic times, how these difficult times can even provide opportunities for our companies, the opportunities we called innovation opportunities, and I'll explain myself in a minute. Let me start by saying that, sorry, probably I need to do, there we are. Well, we are going through, as I said, difficult times that have brought some dramatic changes in the economy. I mean, shops have closed, supply chains have been disrupted, customers have changed habits or they stopped buying altogether. But while we are witnessing that, there are some companies that are doing really well in these times of crisis. Recent reports in the press have reported that Amazon has increased their wealth by something like $20 billion. No surprise probably, given the online character and how they work. But the point I'm trying to make here, even that in times of crisis and hard crisis like that, there are new social needs emerging, and these new social needs are connected with new opportunities, new market opportunities for our companies. And this is how the big question is how we can make, how can we benefit from these new opportunities? So, all in all, I think we are witnessing once more the typical phenomenon of the continuous change and evolution. And if I remember one of the greatest thinkers of our time, Charles Darwin, he said those that really survive in the long term are not the strongest, are not those with the biggest resources, but are those that are most responsive to change. And this crisis just represents another opportunity for us to exhibit that we have these capabilities to change and adapt to our times. But of course, it is times that require a very skilled captain. As the saying goes, rough seas demand a skilled captain. So it's the times where you as the leader of a company, you have a unique opportunity to make a lasting difference in your company, adjust the company to these difficult times, and create new opportunities out of it as the crisis is unfolding. To our opinion, probably the most important weapon you have in your hands as a leader is the weapon of innovation. And by innovation, we mean the process by which we identify new ideas that have significant value for our company and our customers, and we take care of the whole process of developing these new ideas into something concrete, a new product, a new service, a new process, and make the gain the financial value, the economic value of this idea. So commercialize this idea. So this process of finding new ideas, implementing these new ideas, and gaining the financial value out of it is what we call innovation. And we think there are significant opportunities in these difficult times that emerge around this area using this tool. Let me say something critical, which I think I share a lot of times with companies that I'm working with. When we're talking about innovation, we're not talking about the new invention. We're not talking about this grand idea that will send the man to the moon or the man to the Mars. We are talking about new ideas, a new idea that can contribute to our business model. It can create value for the customer, and the role and the opinion of the customer is critical here. And most of all, is a process that can be balanced. It's not a process that we leave it completely to luck. Of course, there's an element of luck, as in everything, but it's a process overall that can be managed all the way from identifying these new ideas, put them in practice, and gain the financial value out of that. So here we are talking about a process that when initiated, we can manage as managers and as leaders in our company as the crisis is unfolding. Let me give you a very good example, which is, I think, tells the story in a very good way. This man, Richard Drew, is a man who was working for 3M back in 1920s. And as he was working for 3M, he observed that a lot of automotive companies have great problem where they're trying to paint two different colors in the cars. The two-color car was very much in fashion at the time, in the sense of when they were using the masking tape and they were trying to take the masking tape off the car that they have just painted, the masking tape was taking with it a significant part of the paint. So they had to repaint, that was costing money and delaying their work. Here then he invented a new product, who was a masking tape with less glue and probably thinner than the typical masking tape, typical masking tapes. The first time he tried to use it in a factory, they told him, take that back and give it to your Scotch bosses of yours, meaning that you are really cheap, you put less glue, thinner tape, we don't want this product that is not going to deliver for us. He insisted, he came back to his lab, he continued working on this product. A few years later, when it was a Great Depression, this product has started flying and it has producing a lot of new opportunities because people using this new tape to repair all kinds of things, books, curtains, even eggs at time, exactly because of the Great Depression. So it was the Great Depression that gave him the rise to the new product that was called sellotape, as we know today, and it gave it a big market from there on. So all in all, what I'm trying to say, this process of innovation, which is a managed process, can start from two beginning points. Either from the vision of entrepreneur, who sees things in a different way than the rest of us, and this is extremely important to bear, or a big problem that the entrepreneur is facing, or the customers are facing, and the entrepreneur is trying to address in order to find a way out. So these times of crisis we're going through is a typical opportunity for people to think, we have a big problem in our hands, how can we reinvent our enterprise or our products or our processes in order to respond to this crisis? A very important element in that is that we need to bear in mind that whatever we do as new ideas, whatever we try to implement as new ideas, must have a very sustainable business model behind. To put it simply, the income we raise from this new idea must be greater than the cost, so the idea can contribute to the business bottom line of our company. There's a lot of work that has been done about business models. I think probably the best one is the work that has been developed by some people call it strategizer. They put the business canvas together. What they said is a very simple thing. When you have a company, you have its offerings, its products and services, you have its processes, the processes the company is using internally, you have the customer segments that the company is trying to address and the market channels that they're trying to reach its customers, and you have the overheads, the general cost of the company, including the overheads, the rent, the billing, etc., and the key suppliers. What the people say, the income raised from the customer segments and the market channels through the products and services should be greater than the cost created by the processes, the overheads, and the key suppliers. As simple as that. My argument today is that these business models should be complemented by two very important things. And this is the things around the reputation of the company. So we need to work not only with our customers, but in times of crisis, a company needs to work with a wider range of social stakeholders and make sure it has communication channels with them. On the other hand, the company needs to work with a wider range of allies, other companies, other people that may have similar concerns or similar interests with the company, and people which I call complementors, people that they have complementing capabilities to offer to our company, or people that they have complementing products and services to offer to our company that our company needs to go through these difficult times of crisis. So I'm going to use these categories in the rest of the seminar to explain you how it can be used depending on the strategic challenges you are facing, because this should be the very first starting point of discussion when we talk about a business.
George, can I come in with a question that's been posted, please? And I've had quite a number of likes from the participants. So the question is, what's seen as most important for SMEs for resilience and recovery? Is it funding, innovation, technology, or ongoing business advice?
Good question. I will discriminate between those things. I mean, all these things should be servants to one critical question, which is what our strategic challenges. So whether it's ongoing support and business advice, whether it's a new technology, whether it's innovation or funding, all of them should serve to address the very strategic challenges we are facing. I mean, for instance, if we're a shop that has closed because of the COVID-19 crisis, this is a big challenge for us because our income stops, there's no profit, and we may have to bear the cost. If we are a company that we are struggling to sell products and services in the market, even in normal times, this is a strategic challenge we need to address. So I wouldn't put a priority into this list. I would say you have to choose intelligently, in an intelligent way, in order to address your strategic challenges. That will be my response to this. Now, let me continue in trying to find a bit of refining framework around these ideas and try to connect these ideas into the challenges that the company is facing. Let me discriminate between different challenges in the time horizon. You have challenges that companies are facing during the lockdown. This is the period we're going now. I know some European countries start coming out of it gradually. No European country has come out completely, but it's a set of challenges that are connected with the lockdown period that we need to address. A second period is what I call the medium term, which is the period just soon after the lockdown is lifted. And this is a new set of opportunities and challenges that need to be addressed. And finally, we need the long-term horizon, which is the economy that will come out of this crisis, what I call the new post-COVID economy. Let me address the challenges and issues emerging in each one of these time horizons and trying to see how innovation can help and support the challenges. During lockdown period, we have challenges that are connected with our business model, and the big weapons we have is the communication with social stakeholders and other allies. What I mean, allow me to explain. The first thing we need to do during the lockdown is to protect our reputation. The reputation of a company is at stake exactly because the society is going through very difficult and challenging times. So you cannot play probably with the most important asset of your enterprise, which is your reputation. And of course, nobody wants to destroy the reputation of their company, but we need to bear in mind that crises represent a situation with high risk where the response to the crisis is not clear. So this is a very fertile ground for managers and leaders to do the wrong move and end up with destroying the reputation of their company unintentionally. According to the academic literature, there are two primary mistakes that can be made in situations like that. Firstly, is to delay action, so to respond with a delay in the crisis that is emerging in the society, not being decisive in the response to the crisis unfolding. And secondly, unconsciously end up with moves that try to protect your company, but reveals no empathy for the wider crisis that the society goes through. If it's a very good example of that is a recent move for Richard Branson. He has been the idol of successful entrepreneurship for many, many years, but we've seen through the crisis where he actually tried to suggest that his private island will be the assets to be mortgaged, so for his company to get a new loan. Rightly or not, that has been perceived as a very wrong move by the wider circles of the public. Newspapers start criticizing him, saying, one of them saying, for instance, here, that the biggest liability of Virgin Atlantic. Rightly or not, the society perceived that speaking about your private island in the middle of the ocean is not something that really fits the circumstances that society goes through in these difficult times. So another example, a more positive example, is another company, Timson. Is the company that's cutting keys, is doing all kind of shoe repairs, another thing, watch repairs, etc. The owner has decided to act very timely. So even before our Prime Minister has announced the lockdown of the economy, he came up the day before and he announced that he closes all the shops in the country, trying to protect the public from the spread of the virus. That led a number of positive articles in the press, and of course that is very helpful for his company in the long run. So I would say, number one, try to protect your reputation, try not to be influenced by the extremely difficult circumstances we are going through to do something that may harm the reputation of your company. The second thing you may need is allies to influence the policy, the regulations, how much money or how much funding will be given by the government. All these open questions that emerge exactly as a result of the crisis, in order to address them successfully and getting the responses that are more favorable to your company, you may have to ally with other people, do a lobbying together, putting your perspective together to the decision makers, just to secure that the response is serving the interests of your company and is in line with your perspectives. So these, I would say, are generic things that apply to all companies, whether whatever is their strategic situation in the crisis. But I would like to move on to become more specific in the challenges that companies are facing. During this crisis, we have companies that are naturally winners. So there are companies, typical example is Amazon, we mentioned already, where the crisis has benefited tremendously their income, their sales have increased, and it's typically companies that they have online capabilities, which are very handy in times of lockdown. The challenge for these companies is to use process innovation in order to scale up their production. Even it's nice to have an extra $20 billion in your company, as Amazon does, it represents a challenge to serve this increased number of customers, increased number of products, and so on and so forth. The second challenge is, type of winner is those people that are allowed to remain open in contrast with other direct or indirect competitors. I mean, typical example is the Flower Pot. It's a local company here in Brighton. They are selling bread and coffee and all that, and these kind of things. They were allowed to remain open because they were they were selling food. So they used this opportunity to start introducing other products into their range, starting selling things like flowers, eggs, things that the customers could not find in a typical supermarket, either because there were shortages or because there were long queues and people were not prepared to wait in the long queue to join the supermarket. So because exactly they decided to remain open, they started to innovating in the range of their products by using complementary products from other suppliers and offering them in their shops, obviously making a profit out of that. Here you see a typical example of their website, the Flower Pot. You see the underlying is mine. We also extended our range to include a number of essentials. This is the point I'm trying to make, and of course they make it very clearly and loudly to let the customers know. There's another type of company though. You may not be one of the obvious winners. So you may not be one of these people that they have the joy to see their sales and the turnover increasing as a result of the crisis. And there, that represents much tougher choices for you, and you need to understand what to do. You really have an issue in your hands if one of these three conditions is present. If you have high overheads. So say that you are a shop, you have to close down as a result of lockdown, but your rent is quite high And even after the discounts that the government allowed and the subsidies you may get, you still have to pay a substantial amount of money into your landlord. Say that you are a company that your reserves are really low. So you cannot really rely on these reserves to make it in the 3 or 4 months that the lockdown may be implemented. Or you are a company where the substitution threat of your customers is quite high. So let me put it in an example. If you are a very small company in a very small Greek island, where you are probably the only hotel in this island, the substitution threat is very low, because if somebody wants to come to this island, you have to use your hotel. If you are on the hotels though in the middle of Brighton, where there are a lot of hotels to be open after the lockdown is lifted, then the substitution threat is very high. So in these circumstances, where the high overhead is there, low reserve of the substitution threat of the customers, you need to start innovating with your market channels, complementers, the customer segments, and the products and services. Let me explain more specifically what I mean. The first move to do is to consider the online market channels. Even if this was not something that it was in your range of things, even if it was not something in your capabilities, you should start developing the capabilities, the thinking around how to move to online market channels. This is online order, online delivery, and the rest. Typical essential elements of that. By doing that, you may have to move to a different customer type. For instance, if your products and services have been going to people of older age, you may have to consider how the product and service can be adjusted to address a younger population, because the younger population is probably more familiar with the online ordering and sales. You need to provide the complementary services, easy and quick access to telephone and online support. People may have their reservations, their concerns, the questions to ask, and therefore it's your responsibility to provide the resources and the processes to respond to these questions. You need to provide health and safety reassurances to the customer, and I'll show you an example in a minute, and make the difference with unique delivery partners and adjust the pricing. Let me speak more specifically. That's a local company in Horsham. It's called My Street Shop. And I have to order something recently. We decided to change our sockets here in our flat. And when I went to their company and I had questions to ask about the sockets, the right sockets, I found that contrary to the practice of a lot of other companies, the telephone number of the company was there in the website to call. I was sure that if I tried to call these companies, I would face long queues and long waiting time. When I called, to my surprise, there was an immediate and a very nice gentleman pick up the phone. I have to tell you, because of the range of questions I have to clarify that day, I called 4 times that day. All 4 times the response was quick, immediate. The gentleman was there to respond to my questions. So he made me a customer through this quick and immediate response. The very next day, after I ordered, I realized I was missing a couple of screws, because stupidly enough, I managed to lose the screws that came with the sample, the first product I ordered. I wrote an email 5 to 9 in the night of one day. 9 o'clock the next day, I had a response to my email saying, don't worry, the screws will be attached for free in the order you put together. So this immediate response, the online response to customers, that remember, there may be customers that never done it before, they never done an online order and shopping of that product before, or they have questions to ask, is an essential element of this moving to online market channels. Here you see another good examples. Domino's. It was easy for them to move to online delivery. They have done it before, but here it was an obvious question for the customers. Is the online delivery and the production of the company safe enough? Can I get a pizza that is free of all the issues that are around the COVID-19 crisis? And here you see in their website, they say, our deliveries are contact free. There's no human hand that's being involved with our pizzas. Pizzas are being produced automatically, they're packed automatically, they're given to the driver in a box, and is delivered in a safe box to you without getting in touch with any human hand in the way to you, just to address the concerns of the customers. Another good example, Click It On Local, a good delivery company in Brighton. they decided to do the deliveries by using bikes. We know that the Brighton population has a high share of people that have environmental concerns, so they decided to address these environmental concerns of these people and say, don't worry about delivery and using all these trucks that contribute to environmental pollution. Our delivery is using bikes, bicycles. So it's a user-friendly delivery. It's a delivery that's compatible with your values. And of course, needless to say, that when you're moving to online market channels, you have to adjust your price. So I'm talking about, for instance, a typical example, a very high-end restaurant in Brighton. They have they used to serve dinners in their place that you will go up to £100 per person, very high-end dinner. They decided to start considering to the online delivery, but of course they had to adjust their prices to below £40 to allow for the new experience, the new value proposition, as well as the difficult times that people are going through. So in doing this adjustment, you may have to adjust the quality of your product into a lower quality, but it's important to adjust the pricing of the products at the same time. So this is moves that you can do to move to online channels, which is very important to be able to maintain the income and the trading income for your company and continue the operations of your company. There's another. Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt your flow, but we have a bit of a chat going on in the Q&A. So if it's all right, if I just interject and pick out a couple of questions from here. So
absolutely, absolutely.
There's been a fair number of posts about reputation. A comment that the examples that you're giving are very useful and relevant, and a statement of agreement really that the brands that reached out immediately with the responses to their customers are giving us a good feel and likely to build and retain their reputation, with Boots and Sainsbury's being pulled out as other examples where we've had good experiences, and one where Vision Express has not contacted customers at all, and that's going to impact our view of them in the future. The question that's come through is, how can small businesses in crisis best manage their reputation when they don't have much experience of public relations, the term used in this case?
Well, very good question, but this is, I think, exactly why I'm talking about innovation. Time of crisis like that is time to develop new skills and new capabilities. And I fully understand the point that you may not have experience on that, but it's an area that I'm sure you have the creativity and the flair to address in a very productive way. So it's exactly times that you need to do things in a different way than before, exactly because the times are so unusual. And my argument is that I'm sure you will manage the process. There may be mistakes made in the way. As far as there's not big mistakes, as the ones we saw, these things will stay with you for after the crisis period. So you develop new communication skills, new capabilities that you can use if and after the lockdown is being lifted. So, any more questions, or we'll go on?
I think that covers them. I'll review as we go along, but I think that's probably it for now. Thanks, George.
Excellent. Okay, let's move on. Another strategy to address the situation where you have high overheads, low reserves, substitution threat very high, and you really have a company which, because of the lockdown, is suffocating. They cannot sell, the market problem has gone, the customers do not buy, or whatever the circumstances. There is an idea which I want to promote to you, which is the idea of scanning the periphery. You know, managers and leaders have the tendency very reasonably to keep looking at the customer base, which is the customer base that contributes to their profitability and to their turnover. That is their existing customers. But while looking at these existing customers, there are a lot of nice opportunities in the periphery of this market or in the periphery of the division that may present significant opportunities if they manage to see them and make benefit out of them. Let me say through some examples. NANOPHOS, a very good small company in Greece, They were producing materials to do big surfaces. This is a central square in Athens that they use their material to cover it and protect it for protect it and ensure the long viability in the long run. They've been using material to paint buildings or squares like that. They also have moved into the shipping industry, producing coatings for boats that help to maintain the boats in longer term. It was hit 2020 by the coronavirus crisis. Greece was one of the countries that went to lockdown very early on. They faced a significant reduction to their sales because of the crisis. Here you can see more about this company in our website, inspired.smes, where there are stories how they develop these innovative products. To come to the main thing, they had the crisis in their hands. They could not maintain the personnel, they could not maintain their activities. Turnover and profitability has received a significant hit. They start thinking, what is the way to use the existing core competence? What is the core competence? Is the thing that they know how to do in order to produce products and services that are relevant for the COVID-19 crisis period. So what they've done, they start playing the substances they have, the products they have, and they discovered that they could turn these substances into a hand sanitizer. And hand sanitizer is a very good market that has emerged as a result of the crisis, exactly because people needed to sanitize their hands to follow the advice of the government, but they couldn't find any hand sanitizer in shops because they're all gone. So they start producing hand sanitizers in bigger and smaller packages, and they saw a big opportunity for their emerging by using the stuff they knew how to do, what I call their core competence. So if I want to show you how exactly it was done, let me skip that slide. They have this core competence of producing chemical and nanotechnology products. They use nanotechnology production. So they use it to produce paints for surfaces, marine coatings, and they said when the new crisis emerged, they start applying the same knowledge, the same know-how into a new market, who was the direct result of COVID-19 crisis. This product may stay with them, and my guess is that it's going to stay with them for after the lockdown period. So they managed to open themselves to a new market that was not clear to them by thinking into the periphery of their mainstream and the main products. They were never thought to do hand sanitizer before the crisis. They did it as a result of it. Another company, again from Greece, TETRAFORM. We have, I'm sorry, PowerPoint decided to quit. It's reopening. I wouldn't hear you, Sona, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. And perhaps whilst you're firing up again, maybe I could bring in another question which has just come through. So how can businesses adapt product for online ordering, thinking about packaging, pricing, size, promotions, and distribution methods?
Sorry, it's not clear what the question is to me. How can they do it?
Yeah.
Well, they need to develop the new offering. You need to do your maths and your work to see how you're going to now allow profit through the new delivery method, how to develop the capabilities. You know, the benefit and the beauty of new technologies today is that a lot of things are easy to organize nowadays. We're not necessarily talking about investments of thousands of pounds in order to be able to organize this online delivery. We're organizing about smartly choosing the equipment and the software that is around. You may have to buy a license, you may have to buy an eBay shop, for instance, but we're not talking about huge investments or huge costs. We are talking probably about new capabilities and new skills you have to acquire in order to manage this process. Okay, I was talking about this company, TETRAFORM. They were into silk screen prints, digital printing and freezer seals. They were serving commercial refrigerator companies, advertising companies, a small company, 12 people, started in 2002. COVID-19 crisis hit them. The orders stopped coming. the turnover has received a significant drop. There they thought, if we know how to produce silk prints and digital printing, if we know how to produce pressure seals, can't we try to move into face masks for people, either medical staff or of others? Yes, we can, the answer was. We do have the know-how that if we work with it and develop it, it's not extremely difficult to arrive at a face mask. There was the question though, who is going to pay for the conversion, this conversion, either of the production or other conversion needed to move into this new product? They found a university hospital in Thessaloniki, which is the second biggest city of Greece. So they secured a contract for them to produce 2,500 masks in a pilot prices as a pilot project. That was enough money for them to cover the conversion to a new product. That did happen. They did deliver 2,500 masks without doing a huge profit in this first project, probably just break even, but having managed to secure money from a pilot customer to do the conversion, which then was translated to a proper production, and today they're producing 6,000 pieces per day. 100,000 pieces have been sold so far, so they open a new market for them as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. Their plans is to expand this product into new markets, farmers, craft workers, factories. The market is big, so they use the opportunity to cover up their costs, to replace the cash flow that they lost, and through a pilot customer, they managed to open up this opportunity. So all in all, this COVID-19 crisis may represent a lot of opportunities for us to introduce new responses, innovative responses, whether it's online market channels, a product in the periphery, whatever else. But we have to start thinking for after the lockdown. One day, sooner or later, the lockdown will finish. And there it is the period that we should start thinking about how we deal with it, especially for those companies that none of the responses we discussed so far is available. So if you cannot go into online, you cannot scan the periphery for a new market, a new product, you have to start thinking how I use my time to prepare for after the lockdown period to be ready to start as soon as the lockdown is lifted. And let me speak more specifically. While you are closed, even if none of the previous strategies is good for you, you cannot just, allow me to say, waste your time waiting for the lockdown to be lifted. You have to use this period to build up the brand of your company. Again, I refer back to the Timpson company. He has a very consistent communication strategy to say to the wider public, in these difficult times, I'm not just lifting my hands and waiting for the crisis to pass. I'm not complaining about the loss of income. I'm taking a positive stand to cover my employees, and while the furlough scheme requires 80% or gives 80% of their salaries, I top up this 80% of that 20% to pay the full salary at a cost to my company. This is finding a very good way through the press. Here you see an article from a national newspaper, which companies are coming through during the coronavirus, and they're talking about plaudits in a number of sectors, retail, hospitality, etc. And Timpson is being mentioned as one of the plaudits in the retail sector because exactly of the action we spoke about. So here is the time, while you're waiting for the lockdown to be lifted, to build up your brand name and your reputation with people. You also have to think ahead of the after lockdown period. So when the lockdown will be lifted, customers will still have their health and safety concerns, will still have their concerns about engaging with your company, and you should think how you address these concerns for when the lockdown lift period comes. So, for instance, if you are a hotel and you want to reopen as soon as the lockdown is lifted, you have to start addressing how you introduce into your processes a significant health and safety element. How you protect your customer from COVID-19 or after the lockdown lift happens, how you protect your own staff, how you make sure your suppliers and all the products you get through them are compliant with this wider health and safety strategy. A very nice example. I have the YouTube example there to show you, but I'm afraid we're running out of time, so we'll not have time to do it. Kempinski, an international hotel chain, they have produced what they call the Kempinski protocol, where they show step by step how they may make sure that all the steps that the customers will undertake when they got into the hotel will have a significant health and safety consideration, making sure that the customer is not contaminated by the virus or doing as much as they can in order to not to be contaminated by the virus. And allow me to stress, they make sure that they communicated this protocol in YouTube, in internet, in different places, so they can address these very reasonable safety concerns of the customer, of the customers, in order to bring their confidence back and be one of them that will be chosen as a hotel destination after the COVID-19 crisis and the lockdown is lifted. So,
George, I think, could I interrupt with a question? Because I think, if I understand the question, it's very relevant to what you're saying. So the question comes from a participant who runs a live events company, and the point he makes is, we don't know when we can return to work, but we have a big event in September. How do we effectively communicate to our customers when we don't know whether or not we'll be able to operate our event?
Well, there are two things in that question. There is the timing, which is, you're right, you don't know whether you're able to return or not. But there's another element that I'm trying to address, and you need to answer the question, what exactly adjustments are you going to do into your processes to address the health and safety concerns of your customers? Even if your event in September does not happen, no doubt there will be a time that your events will come back to life. What have you done now, and how you have communicated these adjustments to the wider group of customers or potential customers to ensure them that the health and safety considerations have been taken into account by you, and you have actually implemented actions and processes that address their concerns. But probably this is the point to move on to my next slide, because it's very relevant. You have to think that the reopening will be gradual into phases. And as a lot of academic analysis will tell us, the reopening will be gradual and will start from smaller crowds, smaller groups. It may be that the person who's asking about the big event, it's one of the events that they may have to wait for some time after the lockdown is lifted. I accept that. But you have to do a planned timing, starting from the products and services that address smaller crowds, smaller groups of people, and postponing the larger crowd events and services for later, after the lockdown is lifted. So into your thinking for the post-lockdown period, you need to introduce this element of trying to move in a phased introduction of your products and services according to the size of the group, and obviously made a financial planning for this. Now, let me sort of trying to wrap up and say that there will be a time after the lockdown is lifted, after the whole crisis will have gone, that the economy will turn back to normal. There's no doubt about that. We don't know exactly when, I take this point, but nobody can doubt that one day, probably in a year, probably more, the whole crisis will have gone. There, we will have a new economy. We have a new economy that you need to start thinking about now. You need to start building your capabilities and your skills now to address this new economy. To my opinion, and allow me to have a personal opinion, I don't have any doubt that the virtue that the online shopping has seen during this crisis is here to stay for after the COVID-19 crisis. Through this crisis, customers and people got more familiar with the online shopping. They used it. They lost a lot of concerns or fears they had. They see the value of it. So I don't see this is something that we'll see it going after the crisis will have gone. Typical figures pick up from a newspaper. April saw 30% increase in online volume. It grows so far 25.5% against 8.5% initially previously anticipated. So we're talking about huge increase in demand. Have no doubt, states, societies, customers are preparing for the new economy after the COVID-19 crisis is over. We've seen this week the European Commission deciding to spend 750 billion euros for recovery fund. The anecdotal rumors I've heard that significant element of this new package will go through innovation activities. So we'll go to companies that are prepared to develop innovative solutions, not sending a new space into the moon, innovative in the context of their market, their customers, and they have something new to offer while they're addressing the big challenges of our time. One of the big challenges is, of course, the environmental sustainability. Another one that has come through this crisis is the health and safety of people and the risk of pandemic. So there is no doubt for me that you need to start preparing for this new era, securing partners and allies that can help you with that, will help you with this case, preparing your new offerings and prepare for the new markets that will emerge as a result. Let me close with the final slide, and I will allow some time for questions and comments. We've seen a set of 9 actions that can be potentially helpful into this COVID-19 crisis. Lead with empathy, act timely, scaling up the process, complementary offerings, online sales capability, scanning the periphery for new products and new opportunities, build up your brand, adjust the processes and supply for health and safety, and plan the phased reopening. Depending on the kind of strategic challenge you face, you may have to choose from this menu of potential responses. So if you are one of the lucky winners, if you are one of these companies that you have online capabilities already and you've seen an increase of demand and sales in this period, whether you are big as Amazon or as small as a small company that now that they're doing educational products or educational and online products, and they can sell it to schools and educational establishments, then try to see how you can scale up your process, how you can respond to this increased demand by doing the necessary changes in your company, how you can beef up your offering with other complementary offerings, increasing your profit margin by reselling other people's products, provided, of course, that other people's products are related to your own offerings. If you are one of these companies that you are not a winner, but you cannot pause because the overheads are very high, because your reserves are very low, your substitution rate of customer is very high, start thinking how you can recombine or redeploy your existing core competencies, the things you know how to do, in order to identify new products, new services, and therefore new markets for you. Very much as the TETRAFORM company did with the face mask, or the example we saw with NANOPHOS, where they did the hand sanitizer. On the other hand, sorry, go the other way, if you are one of these companies that you should pause, or you can pause because your reserve is high enough and you can make this dry period of 3 or 4 months, it's not a huge problem for you, it's not a critical problem for you, start thinking ahead for the post-lockdown period. How you adjust your process and supply, how you communicate these adjustments to the wider audience, the wider public, how you prepare the regaining of the position in your actual markets after you reopen. After the lockdown lift, there will be some hotels, for instance, that have done no work to ensure the customers that the health and safety requirements have been taken into account, and they will be the losers, and there will be those like the Kempinski Hotel that they have prepared a protocol, they have communicated that to the wider audience, and I predict, or my own prediction, that will be one of the winners. Most of all, prepare for the new market that I think will emerge as a result of this crisis. I'm not sure exactly what is the elements of this new economy. I can say some elements, like the environmental sustainability will be there, the protection against pandemic and the health people will be there, but each one of this group will have their own unique advantages that are acquired through the crisis. So if you are one of the winners, like Amazon or a smaller company, all likely will be a cash-rich company. Because of the crisis have given you increased sales, you have good hot cash in your hands. If you are one of these people that have gone to the periphery and managed to find a new product in a new market, you have a new market to grow, a new opportunity, which you can use the post-COVID-19 economy to grow it and grow the income and the profitability of your company. And finally, if you're one of those that you can do none of these two and you have to wait until the lockdown is lifted, prepare with processes that make you more efficient, may address all the health and safety concerns of customers, a company who is becoming more efficient to run, and as a result, in all likelihood, be lower cost to run. This would be a unique element for you that you probably have acquired through the crisis. If you do one single thing, see this crisis and all the terrible things that they have brought as an opportunity for you rather than as a huge problem that was imposed into your company. I want to stop there to give some time for interaction. I don't have loads of time, but I have probably 5-10 minutes.
Thank you, George. Let me kick off. There's a couple of questions here in the Q&A panel. So an interesting one: would you make a difference between innovation and opportunism?
Excellent question. Yes, I would. Well, there are two things that differentiate innovation from opportunism. The first one, an innovation has to address and contribute to the bottom line of the company you are serving. So this is a requirement. Whatever you do as innovation must help the company to be sustainable in the long run and having a viable business model. Secondly, the value proposition of the innovation to the customer should not be fake news. So a very good indicator of that is to have repeating customers. If you manage to sell a product to a customer because you convince him that your product is useful, but as soon as the customer gets to use your product, gets very disappointed and turns away from your products and your company, this is what I would call opportunism. So these are the two requirements I would put to differentiate innovation from opportunism.
Thank you. Just before I come on to the next one, this is literally your last chance. If there's any other questions in your head, pop them into the chat. We'll answer them if we have time. If not, we'll get back to you later. But the last one that we've got so far is it best to focus your brand message around positive communication, the sort of feel-good tone, or negative, as in health and safety oriented, we're all in it together?
Well, my personal inclination will be for the positive message, but addressing the health and safety concerns of the people. I mean, typical example is the Kimbisky protocol. They don't put the health and safety concerns under the carpet. They admit it, and they admit they are there, but they are coming back by saying, we have done our thinking to take care and address this health and safety response. So I don't know if it's clear, but I will go for a positive message addressing, though, the very reasonable health and safety concerns of the customers now. If I'm allowed to say, it's the same story with Timson. When he said, yes, my employees are suffering, 80% are furloughed and are covered the salary. I top up with that another 20% to give them 100% of their salary. So this is what I will take as a positive message, addressing the concerns of the people.
Okay, we've got a last one that's just snuck in. I'm hoping that people will be all right if we run over just by a couple of minutes. So for businesses that have limited resources to invest in innovation, how can they go about testing an idea with the market? Or if they have the resources available, how do they know which idea is the right one to invest in?
Right, is what I tried to say before. If the cost of developing innovation is prohibitive, then trying to find a pilot customer that you may not make a profit out of this product, but at least you'll cover a substantial part of your cost. So try to find somebody, as the TETRAFORM company did, and say, I've got something of value to you. This is a starting point. I suggest that you try it. You probably can try it at a lower price from the standard market, because I'm not here to make a profit. I'm here to try out an idea and see whether it works or not. This will give you the resources to do the first critical step of innovation and get a first testimonial from a customer who will say, I did have a chance to use this product and it's good, so I therefore recommend it. So the strategy of a pilot customer is very good. Second thing I will say there, the government is very keen to fund innovation activity through these tough times. So there are a lot of public funding opportunities that are emerging. A lot of them have the COVID-19 word in it, where you can address. And a lot of these opportunities, as far as I'm aware, they're specifically set up for companies rather than universities, research centers, and the rest. So start your searching, look around for opportunities that are coming out, and try to find your creativity to pull everything together and get the funds required.
That's all for today. Again, thank you very much for taking part, and we look forward to engaging with you another time. Many thanks, George. Many thanks, participants.
Thank you, everybody, for being here.